Hi folks, thanks for tuning in. So you've come here today because you want to see my review on my GS500. Look, I really love these bikes. I've got two of them, they're so good. I've got one set up as a bit of a tourer, and this one here is set up as more of a kind of a Heath Robinson adventure bike really. So if you haven't got a lot of money, don't think that you can't turn the bike that you've got into something that you can use as an all-rounder. As some of you probably know, this bike kicked off in 1989, and when it came out, it was quite a groundbreaking bike. Previous to that, most bikes had twin shocks on the back. This, of course, has got a monoshock full floating suspension, and other kind of innovative ideas were the mag wheels are a hollow wheel. They're very light, so that obviously decreases the unsprung weight. Other things that came out were the frames. Most frames were kind of a tubular affair back in the 70s and 80s, but Suzuki brought this out with a box frame. The engine itself was actually quite a tried and tested design. It was based on the GS400 and then later the GS450. And as they say, they made absolutely shed loads of these from 89 to 2014. It's a 25-year model run, so it's a classic case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Bike was originally marketed as kind of a sports bike, but of course as time moved on and other models superseded it, it kind of got shifted to more of a sports tourer really. The name GS, if you didn't know, actually stands for Grand Sport. So starting from the front then, because that's easy for me to remember, we'll go through the bike and I'll tell you a bit about it. I'll put the specifications up on the screen here so that if there's any of you that are into all that quarter mile stuff and, you know, weights and distributions, you can have a look at that. But I'll just give you a kind of my impression of the bike and what I found by ownership. I've owned 4 or 5 of these over the years, and I think they're a terrific bike. For the money, you can't beat the GS500. So starting up the front then, we got 17-inch wheels front and back. And on this one, I've actually put some Shinko kind of Trailmaster tyres. They're like a 70/30 all-round tyre, really. The reason I put them on, of course, was so I could do stuff like this. I could go up fire trails. Obviously, it's not a dirt bike, but you'll be surprised where you can go in this. And those tyres, of course, with a bit more tread, help me on the gravel tracks. The disadvantage of the Trailmaster tyre, or if you do put bigger tyres on your bike, is that you find that it's not so flickable as it was on the road. And in fact, the first time I went out on this, first corner I went round, I almost felt like I was falling over. So be a little bit careful when you change your tyres on your bike, which you should with any bike really. As I say, 17-inch front wheels. You've got one disc on the front, telescopic forks. Oh, by the way, if you need to do the fork seals on these, which is quite a common job and it's not a difficult job, I have done a comprehensive video there, which you can click on the link and it'll take you through doing the fork seals. Another criticism of this bike is that it's got quite soft suspension from new. Again, you can remedy that by putting in a stiffer fork oil if you like, and then that gives you a bit more of a kind of a sporty feel to it. Got your plastic sort of funky mudguard on the front there, which is quite nice, and a metal kind of brace, fork brace, which is built into the mudguard. When this bike actually came out, the first edition, they had a kind of clip-on handlebar arrangement. So there's 2 bolts either side of the steering yoke, and you're in a very sporty position. Later on, as the bike developed into more of a kind of what they call a sports tourer, they decided it was more appropriate to change the triple yoke on the top and put a more conventional handlebar arrangement to give you more of a kind of a sit-up, relaxed kind of position. Now, on my one, you can actually convert the earlier ones quite easily by just undoing the bolts, taking the clip-on handlebars off, and then you can buy these risers on eBay, nice and cheap, put them on, and then you can put dirt bike handlebars like I have, or you can put on just more of a standard bar, whatever you like. Failing that, you could always go to a breaker and get a later edition GS500 triple yoke, which has got the risers already built in, and then you can change it that way around if you wish. Other things I've done here, look, I had to recalibrate the speedo because the front tyre is bigger than standard, which of course means that the bike is doesn't think it's going as fast as it is when you're going down the road. So I've had to kind of just put some stickers on here to remind me that even though the bike, if it's reading 100 on the OEM speedometer dial, I'm actually doing 110 kilometers an hour. So I had to put that on there just to keep me within the speed limit. And this is just to remind me not to lose my license, because I've got very close to that a few times. And so I try to be a good boy these days. Other things people talk about is the rev range on these. Look, all the fun is up in here. You can plod around all day around 3, 4, 5,000 revs, no worries at all. But if you really want to get a bit of performance out of this bike, you get up around 7, 8, 9,000 revs, and it's quite a surprisingly peppy little bike actually. Very flickable too. That's the other thing about the GS500. The 17-inch front back wheel is a great combination. It's a very flickable, pointable bike. But yeah, there's no point in getting up into 10,000, 11,000, you know, up into the red, because all you're going to do is bounce the valves and you're not going to go any faster. And of course, you know, you're in danger of wrecking your engine. But again, I've got my little stickers up there just to remind me. Got your idiot lights on here, of course. You know, you've got your usual oil pressure warning light, your neutral, your indicator, and your high beam, and your master cylinder. You got an adjustment there too on your, depending on your brake feel, what you like. I set that on 3 myself. I find that's about right. You might have noticed I've chopped off the little balls on the end there because I wanted them to clear the bark busters. But again, like, it's 2-finger braking on this. People say the single disc isn't enough on the front, but I find it more than adequate. I mean, if you can lock up your front wheel on dry tarmac, what more do you want? Another good thing about these earlier bikes, of course, was the light. There was a time there when bikes were being made when the headlight was on all the time, which I know again is a questionable safety feature. But you know, if you got a bit of a flat battery in the morning, the last thing you want is the lights being on when you're trying to get the bike started. So good thing about the earlier GSs is that they've got an off switch. You can turn the light off, pilot light, full lights with, you know, low and high beam. You got indicators there, push it to cancel it, horn, and a flash on the top there. And as you can see, I've put on some dirt bike handlebars with some risers, and I've put some bark buster hand guards on there too, because obviously going through the bush, that's useful, and also in cold weather. You'll be surprised how much bark busters take the wind chill off your hands. It makes a big difference. So I highly recommend you do that if you're into a practical utility kind of themed bike like I am. Put my little grid on the front of there, and I've got my windshield on the top there. Again, windshields again, they really help to take, even though it looks really small, you'll be surprised how much wind that takes off you when you're going down the road. I don't know, anything sort of 80, 90k plus. 17-litre tank on the early GSs. The later GSs, you'll see they actually did a kind of a facelift revamp on them, and the later one has got a bigger tank. It's a 20-litre tank. They also did other design feature faults, like they did a kind of a fatter kind of look to it, the later ones. Personally, I prefer the earlier models. I think they look perfect myself, but it's down to personal taste, isn't it? I'll whip this top box off. This is back from my dispatch days when I was in London in the 80s, and I used to do that for a job. And I never got out of the habit of using a top box really, because we just used to bungee them on the back of the bikes. But I used 2 straps there. A little tip for you. See, I actually cut that to fit the bike with some shade cloth to hold it all in. And I've got various straps and things, tie down points that I can use. And I just use a hot chisel through there. You can see that, to put the strap through. That's really solid. It's another little tip that you might want to do. You don't really care about what things look like. You just want things functional. And there you go. You can see the bike a lot better now. A lot more sleek lines. I think that works really well actually, the way Suzuki did that. And I don't know why they changed it, because I think it was a step backwards myself. Incidentally, the last ones of these was called the GS500F. And the F was a fully faired version. And I think that was a kind of a bit of a nod to the GSXR range with a 750 which came out, which is a classic sports bike, as some of you know. And that looks nice. but the F actually had an oil cooler on it as well. And you'll often see a lot of the old GS500 Fs, so that someone's taken all the fairing off, but you can always tell it's an F because it's got an oil cooler on the bottom. Other things of note, I've got the standard 2-into-1 exhaust system on this. I've done a little bit of a modification on that. Some of you GS buffs will see that's actually a few inches shorter, because I've actually cut that out and taken one of the baffles out and shortened it a little bit. It's still it's not noisy. I don't like noisy bikes, but it's just got a little bit more of a tone to it, which is nice, and it just lightens up the exhaust system a little bit too. Well, that's this side of the bike pretty much covered. We'll move around to the other side. But there's a few quirky things on the GS500 which some people have often got questions about. One of them is this weird kind of petrol tap arrangement you got down here, which is, instead of having on, off and reserve, you've actually got there's no off as such. You've got on, reserve and prime, and a lot of people don't really understand that. But what Suzuki did, and it's not the best system I don't think, is they've got another tap up behind the tank here. So to actually turn the petrol off, if you want to take the tank off and do some work, you've actually got to get a screwdriver and kind of get in behind there, and it's really awkward. What I do is I unbolt it at the back, take the seat off, lift the tank, and I can get a screwdriver in and turn the little slot-head screwdriver, which is up behind on the tap on the tank itself, and then you can take everything off. But they do actually give trouble, these little diaphragm taps, and there's plenty of information out there about how to just convert that over to a standard, more conventional sort of system. The other thing is that people say that they actually give you a bit of warning, these taps, when they do go wrong, that you'll be going down the road and you know, if you really open the throttle, it starves on the standard system. So some people recommend turning it to prime if you really want to give it the beans. Okay, so here, there's a closer look at this. Look, so there's your funny fuel arrangement there. Look, you've got on, you've got reserve, and you've got prime. So the starting procedure is that you turn the bike to prime. I've got that little filter on there so I can see the fuel chamber filling up with fuel. But in your normal position, if your tank's full of fuel, you keep that on, and you give your reserve position as horizontal like that. It's a safety system, so that if the bike fell over or crashed, you'd either be on or reserve, and the engine would die. And then, because it works on a vacuum arrangement from the carburetors, that would mean that the petrol would automatically turn off if the bike crashed and stopped. That's the idea behind the vacuum operated fuel tap mechanism. Also then, when it comes to different keys and locks, you've got your ignition key, you've separate key for the lockable fuel tank that you've got on top there. And on this side, using the ignition key, you've got the seat release lock, which also doubles up as a helmet lock. The idea of that is you've got a hook there, look, and if you got your helmet, you can just get your little D-ring arrangement there, stick that on there and put the seat back on, and you're laughing. You've also got another hook on the other side there if it's, you know, you've got someone with you and you want to lock two helmets on the bike. In here you got your battery. I've got a little charging port on this bike with USB, so I can charge my phone up and camera and stuff. And you've got a little compartment in the back of there to stick your tools, or, you know, and rags and bits and bobs, whatever you like. The other thing I found is that you can actually roll up your waterproofs and like a scarf or some warm gear or things like that. And you can actually tuck those down in the sides here in these rather handy little compartments. Just make sure that it's not going to fall out down the bottom. But again, there's some little secret compartments there that you can utilize. And on the later bikes, they're even more bulbous. You can get more stuff in there. All right, so we'll put that lot away. My touring bike is standard gearing, standard tires, and I find I can get, with a bigger petrol tank, I can get 400 kilometers to the tank full, no problem at all. So they're very economical bikes to run, which is good, especially if it's, you know, kind of one of your first bikes. What else do we know? Well, we got rear foot pegs on the back, obviously, if you want to, you know, put the missus on the back or something. The seat isn't the most comfortable seat in the world, but you can always, you know, put some sort of a cover on that to pad it out a little bit. I've got a aftermarket horn built on there, which because the one that comes with the bike is pretty weedy. They often are on motorbikes. But look, if you want a motorbike which does it all, and it's not going to cost you much to run, you're not going to go far wrong with a GS500. You're really not. I'd go as far to say, and this is probably quite controversial, is that I actually think the GS500 as a utility motorbike is probably the best motorbike ever made. And I challenge anyone in the comments to name me a better bike for just as an all-round workhorse than the mighty GS500. So if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to press all the buttons, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.